I'm going to talk a little bit about the peace process. And I don't want to use the word violence, but let's use the word trauma and, trials and tribulations. And so I'm going to give you the blues, which some people know as the news, but I'm pretty much just going to go over the stuff that I usually go over at the beginning of the show and try to run through this real quick. I want to give a shout out to the viewing audience, and some of these are different terms like Hotep, Jambo, Rahu back. Now, I also want to give a shout out to the Moorish Science Temple. I want to also give a shout out to the Rastafarian culture. I want to give a shout out to the Prince Hall Masons. I want to give a shout out to the Nation of the Islam. I also want to give a shout out to the Nuwabians. I also want to give out a shout out to some other groups. One is the Free Alabama Movement. The Free Alabama Movement is a group down in the southern part of our country, Alabama, for example, and they're fighting for prison, the labor that's going on in prison, and which they feel there's abusive and taking advantage of those individuals in those institutes. It's called Free Alabama Movement. The next one is the Black Land Initiative. The Black Land Initiative is in Oakland, California, and what they're trying to do is have individuals acquire property, shelter. They're working on having people having shelter. Then you have the Justice League out of New York. That's a social justice group out of New York. We also have the New Era Nation. They have 7 chapters. They're out of Detroit, Michigan, but they're also in Atlanta, D.C., Chicago, and stuff. They're fairly new. I think maybe 2 or 3 years old. It's a lot of infighting, because anytime you have something brand new, the lines are blurred. People are trying to establish themselves. It's chaotic situation, but they have good leadership and they're trying to get everything under control. So you can go to their website, I think it's .org, and they can tell you what they're trying to do. And they're also trying to give independent chapters based on their principles to run their particular group in that particular geographical area. So it's not like you got to dress a certain way, you got to talk a certain way. It's usually got to follow the principles, which I agree, to get things moving forward. You don't have to be a robot or a drone. The last group is poorpeoplecampaign.org. And you go to their website, you put in the state that you're trying to contact them from that location. The website will put in the name of the contact person in that particular state when you put in poorpeoplescampaign.org. So if you don't know the contact person in Connecticut, when you go to that website, put in Connecticut, or you put in the area of Connecticut you're in, they'll tell you that person that is overlooking that particular situation. Also, and my role on the show is a dispatcher of information, and my group is Health, Wealth, and Self. I give credit that I get that idea from KRS-One, from the former leader of Boogie Down Production, former rap group, and I embrace the health, wealth, and self concept because most of us are chasing money, but if your wealth is declining, then all the money in the world is irrelevant. You're going to give that money to the disease care system to try to make your last days comfortable. So you spent your whole entire life chasing money, and now you're leaving the planet. So again, just to tell you how many people don't have a will. So, we're young and you're thinking, okay, I don't got to think about a will, but you should think about a will. Because a lot of people end up passing on and now you have infight going on, or you have the probate court collecting on those assets, whatever they may be. So you have to think about your health, and you also got to think about a will, and you have to think about wealth. No one out here want to be struggling. I'm not greedy, so you have people talking about big numbers. I'm trying to be rich and all that stuff. No, I'm not. I want to be comfortable. I want to be able to pay my bill and have something on a rainy day fund. That doesn't make me wealthy. That makes me comfortable. So I can go to bed and not think about money. That's the problem. We're stressed out thinking about money. How I'm going to pay this, how I'm going to get this. The car need repair, but I don't have the money. Do I go to a credit card and jack that up to its limit, and now I'm working to pay off the credit card? I didn't finish paying the card note off, and here we go. I'm stressing. So we got to get health, wealth, and self. Self is have a knowledge of self. You got to know what you're capable of doing and what you can handle. What can you manage? And how far can you go to accomplish your goals? So it's called Health, Wealth, and Self. That's the group that I'm involved in. I'll just give you a few quotes because we do have a guest. I want him to introduce himself. I don't want to soak up his time. Some of the quotes that is important to me is, many people want to improve their circumstances, but they're unwilling to improve themselves. Say it again. Many people want to improve their circumstances, but they're unwilling to improve themselves. Very important. Another thing, figuring things out for yourself is the only freedom that you have. I strongly embrace that. Everything is causation. You got people thinking about choice. You don't know if the choices in front of you was put in front of you to manipulate you to make a decision on it. So figuring things out by getting more information to make a better decision is the way to go, versus thinking that you have a choice. Choice is an illusion that's given to the people the people that have power of manipulation of people that don't have the resources, the information, and the time for all that stuff. So now you're thinking you got a choice. Well, if I follow the rules, this is going to happen. If I don't follow this rule, this is going to happen. That's all behavior modification. That's rewards and punishment. That's a trap. You can go beyond punishment and rewards. Living your life without causing harm to other people. That's the way you should live. People think of freedom is, I can buy anything I want, I can do whatever I want. That's all BS. Freedom is, your mind is free, and you're able to do positive and contribute productive things to society without harming another person. That's true liberation. So, and a thing that this, you may label me paranoid. I don't trust the system, but I do have faith in humanity. That's what I go by. I know there's a certain individual is righteous and will try to do the best they can and the right thing, more than somebody following an ideology or following a religion or following the money or following their cousin. No. I'm looking at principles. If you have a principle to do no harm, tell no lie, and do your best, those are the kind of things that make me gravitate towards you. And the last quote is from Muhammad Ali, and I'll let my guest come up and introduce himself. The service you do for others is the rent that you pay for the room here on the earth. And that quote came from Muhammad Ali. So again, I hope you embrace those quotes. I hope you embrace those different organizations that you can try to donate some money to them, because I always say the greatest nation in the world is donation. So please step up.
Sure.
And our guest today, November the 29th, will introduce himself, and the topic is peace and resolving trauma, violence, anxiety, stressful situations. And my brother right here will take the mic.
Okay, well, good evening or good day to all the viewers. Mikhail, thank you for having me.
Okay.
My name is Iron Nazario. I'm the president and CEO of the Peace Center of Connecticut, which is located here at 157 Charter Oak Avenue in the city of Hartford. I am a Hartford native, born and raised, actually born and raised in Sands, which is not very far from here. And my purpose and my goal today is to hopefully impart on you all the journey to peace that I took to arrive here. There are many strategies and many opportunities that I've utilized. There are also many other individuals that are out there doing work to bring peace to communities in a myriad of ways. What I like to do today is at least enlighten you on what it was that brought me to that space, to the area of nonviolence, to the specific work that I do and that I've done, and to also hopefully impart on you some of the wisdoms that I've learned, knowing that I am not the person that believes that they know it all, but knowing that I do have some wisdom that I can impart. And I'm also hoping that through this segment we can have a conversation in the future where your opinions and your views are heard and discussed in order to have a healthy conversation. Healthy conversation is truly important to have us be a better understood community. So if you don't mind, I'm going to start off with how I arrived at this journey. So I came to Hartford, Connecticut. I was born at St. Francis Hospital. I came here due to a trauma. And Michael, you mentioned a trauma a little while ago. My mom was severely abused by my father. So what my father would do is he would use my brother, my oldest brother, as a carrot or as a weapon against my mom. He would abuse my brother or do things to my brother and tell my mom, if you're not here when I come back from work, I'm going to hurt him, or if you leave me, I'm going to hurt him, and things of that nature. So as any parent would do, any loving parent that loves their child, in many instances, they feel like they're trapped. They're going to do whatever it is that that person is asking them to do. So I truly believe that trauma is passed from the parent to a child. So in this instance, my mom was being abused and tortured by my father, and I was in her womb. So if it's true what science says, that we start hearing in 2 months after we have been conceived, or after we have been in the womb, then I started learning from a very early age what trauma sounded like, what trauma felt like, and all different chemicals that my mom was releasing in her body.
When it's you.
Right, when it's you, through the trauma, definitely was something that was happening to me. So when the final instance was, my father was dangling my brother out the window in Brooklyn, New York, and telling my mom that if she left him, he would drop her. He would drop my brother. So my mom did what she was told to do. My father proceeded to bring my brother in the house and beat my mom outside the face, and he broke her jaw, fractured her cheekbone, and knocked her unconscious. So he then left, got drunk, fell asleep. Long story short, she ends up waking up. He's passed out. She finally says, I've had enough. I'm severely injured. I'm pregnant, 8 months pregnant. I need to get out of here. She eventually runs away, comes to Hartford, Connecticut. She's received an emergency C-section, and I'm born here at St. Francis Hospital. And that's how I came to be here. So obviously, from the age of 2 months through birth, I experienced a severe dose of trauma. I was born, and now I know this, studied myself a lot, I was born addicted to trauma, and I'll explain that in more detail. As my mom attempted to recover from the beatings that she sustained, she became addicted to opioids and the drugs that they gave her at the hospital. Subsequent to that, she then landed in Hartford, in the north end of Hartford, where we were being raised in Sands, and she started to prostitute. She started to look for ways to feed the habit and to feed the addiction that she had now made part of her life. While she was doing this, she ended up having 2 other children. These children were born to Johns that she had met during her time as a prostitute. So as a young person, I'm now about 3 or 4 years old, and what I'm learning are some really tough lessons about what it is that you're supposed to do with children and how a mother's supposed to behave. All these lessons that I'm learning as a child are things that I'm seeing as normal behavior, and things that I should emulate, things that I should copy, things that I should follow because if an adult is doing it, then I should be doing the same. She continued to suffer with drug addiction. She joined a gang called the Ghetto Sisters, which was the female faction of the Ghetto Brothers in the city of Hartford. And through that, I started learning about gangs, and I started learning about conflict and war and things that really began to impact my life as a young child. At the age of 5, DCYS, as it was called back then, came in to remove us because of child abuse and child neglect. So we were separated from my mom. My mom was arrested. I was taken to a foster home in New Jersey along with my oldest brother. My newest family, my youngest brother and sister, were removed from the home. One was adopted by a family I don't know, and one was taken to my grandmother's. But the conditions that we were in were deplorable. I had a number of injuries to my body and my face. My sister had a bad infection in her private area. She hadn't had a diaper changed, and my little brother had not ever been taught to walk, so he had some muscular issues that they had to do extensive work on. So those situations, those conditions to me, although I see them as suffering now, and the work I've done has helped me help young people, but back then it was normal. So even being removed from my mom was a traumatic experience. Even though I was suffering all that torture, to me, that was the only normal I knew. I was placed in a calm environment and a loving home in New Jersey for a little while, and what it did, it actually stabilized me for a little bit and almost what I call interrupted the process of trauma. But I didn't feel a connection to those individuals or those people, and I still had the hope that I could return to my normal, which was a crazy kind of normal, but it was my normal, dysfunctional as it was. I was watching a TV show with my brother at this home, and this is when I first started to envision as a kid what a father would be like. I didn't have my father in my life all that time. So I made up a dad. I made up the dad I saw on TV, this really respectful guy, this really kind guy, good with the kids and all that, and I thought my father would be that. Fast forward a couple of years later, my father gets custody of my brother and I, and the first day I'm in the home, he lays down the rules. Second day, my father starts to abuse my brother and I. So I went from a traumatic situation that I normalized to some calm, right, to calm the storm, back to another traumatic situation, which then I started to adopt. By the age of 8, I was hurting people that I cared about. I was tricking people into pain, and I was enjoying it. By the time I was 13, I'd stabbed someone a number of times, and I went to prison, and I spent the next probably 14 years struggling between the streets, prison, the streets, prison, and not having a home or a place to live. Those were my conditions, and that was my reality. But I was so immersed in it that I felt that it was the only type of existence that I could have. And I bought into it. I actually became addicted. If you talked about trauma earlier, I became addicted to violence and the feeling of invincibility that violence gave me. I learned how to fight better. I learned how to injure someone. I learned how to set things up. And I found myself out in the community looking for revenge for people that would hurt me, or looking for opportunities to get into fights. So the obvious place for me to be was prison. But then when I came onto the street, the obvious place to turn to was gangs. So I joined Los Solitos in Hartford when I was 20 years young. And part of my reason for joining is I was looking for a sense of structure. I know this now, belonging, right? I was looking for protection, I was looking for safety, and I was looking for love. And I was finding it in places where chaos was supreme, because chaos is what I knew was the normal. So I embraced it, I got involved in it, I followed the rules, I did everything that I was required to do, and I spent a lot of years there as part of the gang. We eventually went to war with all the different gangs in the city of Hartford, so that's another trauma. I went to almost 35 funerals in 1 year for people that were murdered, between the different wars. So that in itself, when you talk about a segment of trauma, you talk about recovery and peace and all that, this is the kind of conflict internally that I was coping with and dealing with, and I had to find an out. I had to find some type of way to figure my life out, but everyone around me, almost every single person around me, was stuck in the same situation, and it may have been at different depths, or with they battled different types of demons that they were coping with. I had mine, they had theirs, but we were all in the same pot, melting. So eventually, the great John Wardlaw, who was the former Housing Authority Executive Director, wanted to decrease the gun violence and gang violence in the complex, in the housing projects here in Hartford. And for some reason, I was in the gang. I was a superior, which is a leader in the gang. He reached out to the gangs and he asked if they had someone that could come in and help mediate the conflict, and I was chosen to do so. It was my first paid position as someone not to cause violence, but to actually work to mediate it. I worked with Carl Hardrick, and I worked with Father Lupa Terzo, and I worked with a number of people, including Mayor Mike Peters and a number of other characters from the city of Hartford and leaders. And what it did for me was start to have me thinking a little bit differently about what I wanted for the brothers and sisters. I still didn't really, I'm just being candid, I still really didn't care much about the community, right? Because I didn't know what community was. I just knew what the brothers were. I knew what violence was, and I knew that I had to protect the brothers in the gang at all costs. But I didn't know the impact it was having on the community. I hadn't been educated like that. I dropped out of school right after middle school, so I didn't have an education. The streets weren't my education, and what I said earlier, the punishment was my education. That was my education. Prison was my education. But that pause by John Wardlaw and that opportunity they actually paid me $25,000 a year, and I came from $0 to $25,000. Y'all thought I was rich, and you talked about earlier when you're opening about money. I got a check, my first check, and I thought I was rich. So I went out and I spent it carelessly, and when I woke up the next day, I had a debt, right? And I continued that. But what that did for me for a minute, it stabilized me, allowed me to think differently. And then I met one of my heroes, Michael Barrero, who was a professor at the Institute for Violence Reduction in West Hartford. And what he was able to do, he was able to open up my other capacities and the ways that I could be effective. But this is one of the important things that I want to, at least I want to pass over to you all, is that what he did, he taught me accountability. And accountability is one of the things that was hardest for me to embrace, because accountability means that you're responsible. And when I was in the gang, I was responsible, but not responsible. I was really helping the brothers and working with the brothers, but there was no real measure of accountability because I wasn't caring for myself. I was caring for a system and a group of people that was involved in all these negative things that was causing me harm. I kept going back to jail, kept getting in trouble. But that was my reality. But having met Mike, I'll give you a quick story if you don't mind. I'll share this real quick. The first time that Mike invited me to go to West Hartford to the School of Social Work to meet him, I was terrified. I had never been out of Hartford, I just knew the streets. So I went to the UConn School of Social Work, and when I was there, he said the word accountability, responsibility. And because I was illiterate at the time, I didn't really know much about that kind of language. I didn't know what he was talking about. I thought he was insulting me, so I took it kind of personal because I wasn't really built to understand that at the time. So next 3 months, I was skipping on meetings, I was turning in paperwork, I was lying about where I was, and he would, every single time he caught me, he says, I'm going to tell you the truth, Iron, you are lying to me, your accountability isn't there, you're not being responsible. And I would get super heated because he was challenging the weaknesses and challenges that I had, and nobody dared do that to me. It was about, I would hurt you, I would come after you, the gang would come after you. I had a violent way of handling things, and he never stopped challenging me. He remained consistent day after day, year after year. And what that eventually had me do is I started reflecting on, wait a second, the only consistent person in my life is this man. The only consistent thing that he's asking for me for is responsibility and accountability. And if I just submit to that, then my life is going to be better instead of fighting against it because I was afraid to face my real me, right? All the trauma that I had. So eventually, he convinced me. I started listening to him. We had our ins and outs. We had a lot of squabbles and back and forth. And then I learned that I needed help. I learned that I needed therapy, and I needed someone to talk to me besides him, besides my friends, besides myself. I needed somebody that was neutral to tell me where I was. So I was diagnosed with stress impulse disorder, all kinds of different things. And what I learned about that is that when my stress level was high, I would respond with violence because I was afraid of solution. I was afraid of finding a balance. I was afraid of losing. And once I went to therapy, I arrived at a place where I thought, okay, I can do something about having other people that are struggling like this experience the same thing. And I started the journey. I embraced the university. I embraced the lessons. I actually even went back to school, got my high school diploma, went to college for a communications degree. I really started to feel myself like I was balanced out. But the craziness was that I was on the fence. I was still in the game, but I was going to school. I was working at the university, but I was still running on the streets at night. So I was still so connected to that street, afraid to leave it because I didn't know if I could stand alone without it, that the trauma started to return in my head because I was nervous about finally letting go, and I did, and I eventually let go, and I became the supervisor of the Institute for Violence Reduction, and I recruited about 30 or so folks to work there from the streets, returning citizens, gang members, you name it. But I still was wounded. I still didn't have, as you said earlier in the segment, that sense of peace, right? The sense of overcoming tragedy and being able to overcome obstacles. I still had to learn about that. I had a young daughter who I needed to be a mentor to, and I didn't know how to mentor a child. I wasn't mentored well, so I didn't know how to coach and be a father. So all of these challenges are happening, and eventually I received an opportunity to work for Mikasa Family Services here in Hartford, and I started mentoring kids through football. And what I learned about myself while I was mentoring these kids was that all these years I had spent saying, "Woe me, it's just me, I'm just going through this," and whatever. These young people were exhibiting the same behaviors because of traumas they were going through that I had many years before them. So I said to myself, in order for me to get to these young people, I have to start teaching these young people about the power of self-reflection, right? About the power of actually being in your space and understanding that what's happening to you is maybe happening to you at the moment, but there are things that you can do and resources and people that you can turn to help you understand ways to solve some of these things. Doesn't mean that you are going to be perfect. It doesn't mean that there's not other challenges that are going to face you. But what it does mean is that the more you realize exactly the full picture, take a step back, look at the entire picture, and look at which ways you can turn to alleviate some of the stressors and some of the things that are happening in your life. And that's when I started to feel peace for myself. I then went on to working for the Yo Hartford movement. I became a chief recruiter. Spent about 4 or 5 years there, and once again continued to look and search for more ways to have peace in my life. And I needed to have it for my daughter, I needed to have it for myself, I needed to have it for my career. And then I arrived at Compass Youth Collaborative, which allowed me to be there for 14 years as the founder and creator of the Peace Builders Project here in Hartford. And the first night on the job, I responded to a triple shooting in the south end of Hartford. Talk about re-traumatizing you when you show up to a scene and there are 3 bodies and you have to provide CPR, render aid to somebody's already deceased, and you remember what it was like to be at war, you remember what it was like to be kind of challenged with that kind of thing, but you also are being looked upon by the people that see you as a calming force. How do you show up to do that? How do you show up and bring the peace that you feel within yourself to an environment that's hostile, that is filled with grief and pain and suffering and misunderstanding? So I started to apply that, and I think the most important thing that I've ever done, even after that, was learn to forgive. Forgiveness, for me, was huge in being able to move forward. I had a lot of animosity for my mom, a lot of animosity for my dad, not understanding where their conditions were, what they were dealing with. And when I did that, when I forgave, the world opened up for me. Like literally my vision got clearer. The burden of hating them, right, and despising what they had done to me was lifted, and I no longer carried that burden or that responsibility of making sure that I met their expectation, or that I shunned them out, or that I was evil to them. That lifted that weight off of me, and now I could operate as my own person. And part of forgiveness is wanting peace. If you don't forgive yourself for the things you've done, if you don't forgive the people that have wronged you, if you don't forgive the small things, the large things, you're going to carry these burdens moving forward, and that's what's going to make the challenge that much larger for you to overcome. So as we talked earlier, once I started this Peace Builders program, I started a Junior Peace Builders program, and then a number of other programs, all focused on transformation of the human mind, right? And transformation not by psychosis or putting people under spells and all that other stuff, right? It was really about having folks repeat what their life is like, and then really repeat what their life is like.
Mm-hmm.
Because what was happening to us was, at least for me, I can speak for myself, when I was going through things, it was almost impossible for me to see an out, because I wasn't taking a look at the full picture. What I was able to do was now look at the full picture, and I used what I call the balance scale technique, right, on myself. I still use it today, where I add relevance and importance to a certain thing. What I add, the relevance I give it will determine how I respond to it. So, like earlier you said in your segment, money. So if I give importance to money, then when I don't have any, that importance is going to force me to, in my head, it's going to force me to take drastic measures to get it, because I gave it so much importance. But if I give importance to being calm, to being at peace, to being responsible, and to living within my means, when things don't work, I can manage, because everything is balanced. So I use the balance scale, and I use that a lot in my life, and I've been able to teach it forward. Working as the president of the Peace Center now, what I've learned is that there are many communities outside of the city and across this country that are struggling with forgiveness, they're struggling with empathy, they're struggling with tolerance. We're easy to bump one another, and they get frustrated and resort from instead of going for the punch or for the push, you go for the gun right away, because it's the easiest quieter of noise. It's the easiest solution sometimes to certain individuals who can't cope with anything anymore. And for me, by learning all of these things, I see how truly important peace is to ensuring that our society survives. We can want all the financial things, we can want all the material things, but realistically, if you're living in a situation where you have no peace, none of that stuff will eventually matter. It'll eventually go by the wayside. It'll eventually turn into a burden. Wealth is something that again, you have mentioned in the beginning. Wealth is something that once you obtain it, you have to work to keep it. It doesn't stay there on its own by magic. And because it doesn't remain there, the stress that you incur based on that issue or based on that will eventually become your burden and your pressure, and pressure bust pipes, and eventually, if you don't have the coping structures because you focus so much on the material and the financial, you won't survive your failure. I talked to a young man today who told me, due to his resilience and what he went through as a young man, he's able to now absorb much more trauma, much more neglect, much more letdown, much more suppression than he would have had he grown up not knowing any of those challenges and tribulations. So, one of the things that I believe as a program person, as someone that wants to help everyone, is that the more time you spend around people who are like mind, the more you become like them, whether it's good or bad. There's a saying in Spanish, and I'll say it in Spanish and I'll repeat it in English. It goes, "Dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres." So it's, tell me who you walk with, and I'll tell you who you are. And when I was running with my brothers on the streets, the outside world said he's a gang member, right? When I was being a domestic abuser, the courts would say he's a domestic abuser. When I was in prison, the world would say he's an inmate. So I had to, in order to then reclaim the true person that I was, I had to stop my behavior, I had to face myself, I had to then practice what I was preaching, and now I had to change opinion. Because, and I had to change my environment with regard to who I allowed in my circle, because toxicity can make its way into your circle, and if you buy into it and you spend enough time around it without challenging it, it will eventually disrupt your calm and your peace. So I think that one of the important things about peace programming and the things that I do, I have a Youth Peace Alliance now that's really focused on developing young people for peace and leadership in peace for the state of Connecticut. And one of the things that they're charged to do is for coming up with solutions, not solutions, but with conversations and topics that can address some of the things that are happening in certain communities that prevent peace from happening, right? The second thing that the Peace Center is doing is we are honoring peace heroes. These are folks, everyday people that are doing great things every day of their lives to give back to a community and figure out ways to make people's lives better. Whether it's through direct service, or it's through messaging, or it's through donating, or whatever the case might be, as long as they're contributing to peaceful communities and more calm communities, we're honoring them every year. We provide consulting and professional development services because there are professionals in many arenas that are working with young people or working with communities and really have no insight as to what the causes are that have these individuals in their situation in the first place. So I use my experience and my years of work to engage these people and help them understand how they can serve their communities better. And then lastly, one of the things that I think it's important, because I'm using again my own example, in order to have peace, I think you need to be able to mix communities. I think that it's important that in order for you to be conscious and aware of not only people and how they live and who they are and their culture and all that, you have to have contact. You have to have not just contact once in a while. I'll go tutor you, so you're going to change. That's not going to work. Or I'll come by and do a speech, and that's going to work. You need communities to have long-term relationships. Tonight I was at an award ceremony where someone was being honored for 20 years of service. What was most impactful about that entire experience was the room. The room was filled with young people to people in their 70s, all connected to this one person who took the time to connect all these individuals. So you have young people that will never know not having a resource. So for me, peace is also about making connections between communities that don't get to know one another, so they don't help one another. Because all you do is you look in, but you don't necessarily reach in.
This system that we're in is set up for competition.
Sure.
And when I usually talk to a different audience, they interpret that statement as attacking capitalism. Because capitalism is based on competition. Okay. But what I try to tell them is competition makes a better product. So when you're making something and you want to be the best that you can make, and you have competition, because that's going to take profit away from you if it's not a good quality product. Right. It's going to be better. But competition doesn't make a better human being. See, because if I come out with this, it's ignored as a book, but as a product. Right. And it's the best out there because it's the only one out there. Once competition, you get involved and other people get involved, I'm going to start losing a profit because you're digging into my market. Right. Now I'm starting to think deceptively because I got to find a way to stop you. I mean, what I should be doing is trying to have you form alignment with me so we can work together. Right. But we don't think like that. We think we're brought up to be competitive. Sure. So Just like when you had the Olympics, when those two skaters
Mhm.
were skating against each other, what happened? One of them took an object and injured
the other one.
because this is competition.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it brings the competition brings the worst in our human nature, because we want to try to stop that person,
Right.
because they're taking away something that we think is our right.
Right. Well, I think across, I agree with you, and I think that in many of the communities that I've worked in, one of the terms that I use is the fact that it's either disjointed or fragmented, and the reason why fragmentation happens in these communities is exactly to the point that you made, that when you have systems that are designed to have you fight for peanuts, then you go into that system believing that you're not going to survive unless you fight for those peanuts.
Right.
What the Peace Center is doing, because this is why I started the Peace Center concept, and this is why I believe that it will work. The Peace Center serves as the central hub for all peace efforts across the state of Connecticut, right? So that's the goal, that's the mission. We've only been in operation for about 1.5 years, so we're still building the foundational things. But the goal is to have a space that's neutral, where anyone working on anti-violence or peace efforts can actually cohabitate, use that space, share information in that space, have their memorabilia, their articles, their CDs, their movies, their shows, whatever the case might be. And we, as the neutral body, ensure that everyone in that building is doing well and that everyone is thriving. So then that way you sustain long term. If I went into this and said, well, I'm going to launch a peace center and I'm going to be the greatest thing ever, I'm going to be the one that does it, and then I will fail, because I will get into a competition market and I will eventually have to resort to burying the opponent in order to shine.
To shine, yeah.
Right. And for me, it's peace.
Not about that.
It's not about that. It's not
Right.
about me. It's about community. It's about developing confidence in a space that is looking out for the best interests of everyone involved. One of the mandated things for anyone that is looking to lease or rent space at the Peace Center is that they have a once a month or bi-weekly meeting with all partners in the building or external partners to talk about what are your struggles, what are your challenges, what are your successes, to figure out how we can all fill each other's gaps so we can sustain. You keep the building running, you keep your people safe, you keep the momentum going, you keep fresh ideas happening, because you're all supporting one another and investing in each other.
Yeah.
So I agree with you 100%. When we first started here, one of the things that I appreciated about you saying, as you were reciting some of the quotes from others, was it Rakim and the groups that you mentioned, but
And Muhammad Ali.
yeah,
and those
Muhammad Ali,
all-
yeah,
all-
right.
all- yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
these folks didn't speak from a pedestal of non-experience, right?
Mhm.
These are individuals who fought like mad to arrive at a point where their voices could be heard. So they traveled the world talking to people and learning about different things. So when they talk, they're talking about true experience. These quotes are about you asserting yourself to and challenging yourself to be a better person, right? To not let systems take from you, but you become
Right.
You become the system that eventually hugs, and what I call a community hug, that hugs your community, so you can all be. Do you know there are certain nationalities and certain groups in this world that actually do that? That their sole purpose is to ensure the survival of their race, of their culture, of their systems, of their product, of their richness, or whatever the case might be.
Right.
But there are others that, for some reason, for many, many years, again, as a kid growing up here, have seen the dissolving of community, of family, of all these structures that are vital to our healthy success. So again, as someone that is 100% committed to ensuring I do whatever I can with the time that I have to impact as many people in a positive way, without
Right.
violence, without negativity, without putting someone down.
There you go. Yeah.
That's what I'm going to commit myself and dedicate myself to.
These are all principles and good pillars of a foundation that needs to be constantly repeated. Now, I'm not saying that you're not doing it, but I'm just saying
Absolutely.
for all of us have to keep repeating it, so it becomes almost repetition.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with martial art. You keep practicing block, strike,
Yeah.
till it get automatic. It's a muscle memory,
Right.
so it gets automatic. So you don't really think about it.
Mhm.
So And it's not it's simple. It's simplistic when I say right and wrong. It's not about righteous or right and wrong. It's being efficient.
Yeah.
I look at more as not being right, but being efficient.
Right.
So if we're all living together, and I'm not trying to stab you in the back, I'm not trying to make you look bad, and I'm not angry it's going to be a better environment.
Sure.
You know?
I once had a discussion with some incredibly talented young people, and there's just so many in Hartford and in other communities, about the economic impact of one assault. So when you look at the financial setbacks of a young person who commits one assault, the numbers are staggering. They're in the millions, because every single effort that is going to take to redirect this young person after they've done that, if they haven't been remorseful about it, is years in the making. You literally
Right.
have to spend so much time. So as a community, if we start to have these difficult conversations about redirecting our children's behavior, changing the importance of love and connection and community and support from the important things that we put on, like J's or necklaces or whatever it is that we feel are the important things that make you shine and make you important and relevant, I think that our societies will be a lot better off for it. There are tons of data points and research experts that'll tell you, one act of violence will eventually lead to 2 acts of violence, 3 acts of violence, 4 acts of violence, because who you injure, who you hurt, what you do,
It's a ripple
there's a
effect.
ripple effect.
Yeah.
Not only is it a ripple effect, it causes, even if you 2 stopped, the people that have been injured, one of those people is likely to keep it going, and it
Right.
may go on, because it's impossible for you to control every single person in your network and how they're going to respond based on what you do. So think about it very carefully when you are challenging someone because you feel threatened. Think about it very carefully when your mindset is going to hurting someone, because what you're doing, you're setting up a set of actions that are hard to take back. One of the greatest lessons kids learn or people learn is I use boxing mitts, and I have a kid, and I'll say, okay, I just want you to throw a left and a right punch. They throw a left and a right punch, and then I say, take that back. And when you look at their expression, they're like, what do you mean? I can't take the punch back. And it's done. And many times for us, we don't think about the consequences and how things that escape you negatively don't come back.
Right.
Think about the differences between negative energy and positive energy. Positive energy has a way of bringing people to you. Negative energy has a way of bringing people after you. It's two very different things. If I'm kind to you, sir, and I'm good to you, and you're not as kind to me, and you continue to be that way, eventually your repercussions will be of that kind. If I'm kind and I forgive and I continue, whether it's spiritual, whether it's emotional, whether it's financial, those things apply. Things will be returned in good favor to you.
Yeah, I never use that term. That's a nice term. I usually use the positive. Love is a creating force, and a negative force is a destructive force. And I always say that people need to look at love as a powerful force, because love can create something.
Sure.
And the negative force, all it does, it destroys. But the destruction is such, it doesn't take any skills. Love and positive force is a skillful and activity. What I mean is, like, if you take construction, a 40, 50 story building is going to be close to 4 years to build it. And you need steel workers, you need electricians, you need plumbers, you need carpenters, you need laborers, you need all these engineering, you need all these people to work on this building. Destroy the building, you just need a demolition crew with some knowledge of explosion, put it at certain stress points, and it comes down 5 minutes. 4 years of work come down 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what destruction is.
Yeah,
Destruction
absolutely.
is so easy.
Great point.
It doesn't take any thinking. or not looking at any consequences, no skills.
Right.
And a creative force, which is going to affect that building standing up, affects everybody.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
You know, look what happened in 9/11. People are choking on the smoke.
Yeah.
You know, people dying.
Yeah,
I mean,
still.
people. Yeah, and all that trauma
Yeah.
from that experience versus when those buildings was up.
Yeah.
People want to go there
Yeah.
and take pic. You know,
Yeah.
so this is what creation and love and the positive forces that you talk about brings to the
Yeah.
table.
Yeah. Well, I think that you know, many times what we do is we have this thing called fixed mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you arrive at a point in your brain where you decide that this is just the way it is. You know, that new term that I don't really kind of follow. It is what it is. It can't be. It is what it is. It can't be. Because if you go to that belief system that it is what it is, all right, what you're convincing yourself, what you're doing is convincing yourself
Nothing can
that
change.
nothing can change about it, and that's what it is. I get it. If you were shot, it is what it is. I got shot. Right now, is it now? It is what it is. That how you're going to respond is if you're healed, you were shot. You're not shot, right? So one of the things that you have to do is not only heal the wound, heal your mentality, heal the way you're thinking about the changes that you can actually make. Because one of the hardest things to do is really look at yourself and say, I have to rewire my process and my way of thinking. Just again, measure what's valuable about you making a change. What is going to be the most powerful contribution that you can make to your own self if you change your ways from being a violent person, a person that indulges in habits that are destructive to your community and to you, versus changing those things. Just go ahead and start making some changes, and you'll see.
But there's a lot of, I know we don't have the time, there's a lot of variation to everything you're saying that can go really deep. And I don't want to, I kind of want to bring it up, but I don't want to bring it out into the universe.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really want to name names and really talk about the situation because it's going to bring up stuff to certain people. But my background is not as, I'm not even talking about the trauma, but I'm talking about the violent part. I had some, okay, we have 3 minutes, I got to make this fast. I had some violent encounters. Now, what I did is we as human beings got to really think these situations through.
Sure.
So what happened was when your boy gets in trouble, you don't even know if he was right or wrong on his end, but because like you said, it's your boy, you're gonna rally. Yeah.
Sure.
So I got hurt, so you don't really need, but you know what I mean by hurt.
Yeah,
When I ended up in the hospital, meaning that, you know,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, am I going to survive?
Sure.
But what I did was I said, I shouldn't have jumped into it. I don't even know if he was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the circumstances of I just was this herd mentality.
Yeah, blind love, man.
Yeah, and jump in. And I ran into the person that hurt me.
Sure.
But what I did, I just kept it moving because I said I didn't know him and I should have gotten involved in that conflict.
Sure.
But the typical response is revenge.
Revenge. Right.
But I said, how's that going to keep going?
It's going
to keep going. So I kept moving.
Sure.
And to other people telling the story, they were like, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You got to be able to do this. You can't let every confrontation become a life sentence.
You can't.
You know, because
Yeah.
it would just be chaotic.
Absolutely.
All in the neighborhoods.
And other people are doing it, so it's possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Other
Yeah.
people are stopping, so you can do it.
Yeah.
You know, but,
And the last thing you want to say, do you have any events
Sure.
coming up? Or?
Yeah, so the Peace Center of Connecticut, we have a number of events, but the most important one is on April 25th of 2019, which is our Peace Hero Awards. I invite you to come out to the Pound House in West Hartford and help us honor people who are working
At
for
Elizabeth
peace.
Park?
Elizabeth Park Pound House. You know, if you want some more information, you can go to our website, Peace Center of Connecticut, peacecenterofct.org, peacecenterofct.org. Also on all social media sites, I'm pretty much everywhere with the Peace Center message. So if you want to find out more information, you can do that.